Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. I welcome you once again with the new topic that you can see it from here. It's Prayer by Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor, one of the famous poets of Kashmiri literature. Dear students, before we begin this topic, let's recapitulate what we have done in the earlier lecture. Our topic was Speak Up. That's one of the most wonderful poems in Tulip series 10th class. And I have discussed certain important things from the poem which are very important to discuss. And besides, there are other things, which I might have forgotten to discuss from the poem. Yes, in fact, there were comments from your side that, I should have expanded the thematic concern from the poem. I should have elaborated the title in broader perspectives. Yes, that's absolutely right. There is no problem in that also. One thing you should remember that, at the end of the lecture, at the end of the poem, in fact, when the poem, concludes, I usually do one thing that I try to, analyze the poem from my perspective. So I have provided the analysis of the poem in the description. You can visit to the description, you can read the analysis. I hope that you can understand there each and everything from the poem. So let's begin with the new poem, G.A. Mahjoor's Prayer, which is very important. This is a poem written by Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor, and it is in the form of prayer that you can see from here. So here Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor, one of the famous poets of Kashmiri literature, Kashmiri poetry in fact, he implores in this poem to God Almighty that God Almighty should lead him to the path of truth. He should pour in him the nectar of knowledge, and he should vanish away the ignorance in him. And also Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor, through this poem, that can be treated as central idea also of the poem. He wishes that God should put him under his protection. He should keep him under his protection, under his umbrage, in other words, so that he might not feel the dearth of knowledge and instruction and inspiration in his life. So this is the thematic concern of the poem. We'll be discussing it once we take the lines. So before that, let us throw some light on the background of the poet, which is very important, since this literature itself is the outcome of the background of the poet. It is the in other words, it is the mirror, it is the reflection of the age. So I already said it in earlier lecture, in previous lecture, that we must go to the background of the poet to know the age the poet lived, the writer lived, because that impacts a lot, that matters a lot when it comes to the literature of the poet or any writer. So that's very important. So let's throw light on some very important biographical points of Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor. Dear students, Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor was born in 1887, and he died in 1952. So this is the age, this is the date of birth and date of death of this famous writer of Kashmir. So if we take this age into consideration, this era into consideration, that we can easily come to know that during this time it was the Dogras who would rule Kashmir. So they were at the helm of affairs then. So I think it is 1846, the era of Dogras. 1846, yes, it is 1846, and it ended in fact 1952, the death date of this poet. 1952 it ended. The abolition of Dogra dynasty ended in 1952. So no doubt if we go through this era of literature, we come to know that that in that literature it's categorically it's clear from the very literature, from the very history, that there were injustices done to the state, to the people of the state. Oppression was posed on them. There was huge suppression from the rulers of the Dogra dynasty. So these kind of themes are blend. These kind of themes have been incorporated by the writers then, by the poets than in Kashmir. For example, it was not the case of Mahjur only. It's not the case of Mahjur only. There were a few other writers, who contributed to the literature, and we find the similar kind of themes in their literature too. For example, the contemporary of Mahjur were Abdul Ahad Azad. Abdul Ahad Azad, one of the famous writers of Kashmir, and there is one more, Zinda Kaul, and Dinanath Nadeem. These are the contemporaries of Ghulam Ahmad Mahjur. So these writers have incorporated in their literature, in their poetry, the similar kind of themes. No doubt, there is a poetry which is written for poetry's sake only. They sometimes, the poets are self-obsessed at the beginning of their career. So yes, we find that self-obsessedness in their literature too. But there are themes which are social, which have social message, which is very important once we come to the literature, to the poetry of these poets. I just want to focus, I just want to throw some light on this writer, Dr. Abdul Ahad Azad, which is very important to discuss. Abdul Ahad Azad is considered one of the famous poets of Kashmiri poetry. His poetry has been translated into English also. And Lol is the title that has been set. Lol, it's a Kashmiri term which if we put in English translated, it is love. This poetry has been translated into English, and the same term has been incorporated in the translation, Lol, love. The songs have been titled as Lol in English also. So he's famous for that. And one more important thing, he's mostly he's referred as the John Keats of Kashmir. Dear students, you should remember this thing, that it's not Abdul Ahad Azad who has won this title as the John Keats of Kashmir. It is Rasul Mir, in fact, who is called the John Keats of Kashmir. But there are certain critics who consider Abdul Ahad Azad also. Mostly he is considered the John Keats of Kashmir also by those critics. So you should not forget this very thing also. So we can find similar kind of themes in the literature of Abdul Ahad Azad, and these were the contemporaries. And coming to Ghulam Ahmad Mahjur, who was born in 1887 and died 1952, Mahjur, was considered the herald in the didactic poetry, in Kashmiri literature. What didactic means? This is very important when we say didactic. Didactic, it means kind of literature, kind of art which has a moral message for us, which instructs us. Okay, so which has ethical value for us, for the society, for the people. Okay, so when we come to the literature, when we come to the poetry of Ghulam Ahmad Mahjur, we find that this didacticness can be found in abundance in the poetry of Ghulam Ahmad Mahjur. So he is considered even the herald, a sign, a symbol of didactic literature in the poetry of Kashmiri literature. And one more important thing which is very important to remember, as far as the poet Ghulam Ahmad Mahjur is considered, he is called the Shair-e Kashmir because of incorporation of the themes which were unprecedented in the age of these writers, these poets. So that's very important point. And he also incorporated themes which were closer to life. Even his songs have a magical appeal. They have a magical appeal, and critics say they have the similar kind of magical appeal which was found in the poetry of Habba Khatun. Okay, so this is also one of the important points that we should remember. So he also goes the credit of as the first transitional poet. Transitional poet. What transitional means? Transitional simply means one who changes from one era to another realm. who changes from one realm to another realm. Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor too would write poetry that was, for poetry's sake, that, he would write, he would glorify himself, he would glorify nature. But later on, he had to shift. I remember, we had a discussion on Speak Up. Like Faiz Ahmad Faiz, we find a similar kind of, intention in the, poetry of Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor also, because both the poets, through their art, wanted to awaken their people to get up and speak against the oppression, against the tyranny. So that's one of the themes that is similar, that can be seen in the poets, both Faiz Ahmad Faiz and Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor. This is one of the important points that you should remember. So through this, coming to this poem, which is very important for us, Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor, through this poem, it's written in the form of a prayer. It's a prayer. ये एक दुआ है जो खुदा की तरफ वो खुदा को करता है कि he implores God that God should not abandon him. God should not abandon him. He just wants to say to God that Mahjoor cannot bear the separation. Even if all the people, separate him, if they separate him, if they abandon Mahjoor, if they forsake Mahjoor, can bear that. But Mahjoor cannot bear if there is a separation between him and God, between Mahjoor and God. So he cannot. So that's why he implores God that God should put him under his protection. God should take him under his protection, under his umbrage. That is also the central idea of the poem. This is one of the important message from the poem. That's why we can find from the very beginning line that what actually Mahjoor wants from his God, what he implores, what he wants from his God. So we can find from the very beginning line that what the intention of the poet is. There are certain metaphors, similes used in the in this poem, which are very important to understand if we are to understand this poem as a whole. Okay, so let us go through the lines. Lord, God, this Lord is God. Okay, this Lord is God Almighty. Lord, you are my hope and trust. You are my hope and trust. Lead me to the way of truth. So look at, Lord, you are my hope. Sahibo sakcha me chani vat me asli chhautam. So this is actually the prayer we usually would recite in the morning assemblies when we were in our early childhood. So still it goes on. It's one of the wonderful prayer considered in Kashmir Valley. Still this has a magical appeal. Students can recite this orally, this poem. Okay, so Lord, you are my hope and trust. Lead me to the way of truth. Okay, this is very clear. He implores God that God should lead him to the path of truth. He does not want to live in ignorance. That is simple. Okay, the poet does not want to live in ignorance because he considers ignorance one of the burden. Okay, so that's why in the second line, how long shall I dwell in ignorance? So ignorance is not just reading. If one does not read books, if one does not read Quran. Ignorance is that if one is devoid of human values, if one has lost all the capacity of morals, if one has lost the ethical values, if one has not that energy that he can get up and speak and fight against the oppression and against the tyranny. So that's actually what the ignorance of the people. He too wants to, it's not that, you should remember that when Mahjoor talks himself that he actually implores God that God should lead him towards truth. It's not Mahjoor alone. Dear students, this is very important. It's not Mahjoor alone when Mahjoor says that God should lead him towards truth. Mahjoor is the representation of the general mankind. So it's all mankind symbolically, metaphorically. So it's we all who implore God through this poem, through this prayer, that God should lead us to the path of truth and he should banish all the ignorance and ills and pains from our life so that we can get and live in it. Okay, so how long shall I dwell in ignorance? This dwell in ignorance is a metaphor, simply dwell in ignorance. So dwell, when we take this word dwell, it means live, to live in, to live in, to live in. Kisi jagah rehna. So how long shall I dwell in ignorance? So through imagination, through this metaphor, Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor has created, he has constructed a house. Okay, it's a construction of a house which is dark, and whosoever lives in that house, he lives in ignorance. So ignorance is not some kind of house where people go and live. Okay, so but metaphorically he makes some house where people live, so he calls that ignorance. Okay, so that's why it's a metaphor used here. Okay, how long shall I dwell in ignorance? Pour me the nectar of knowledge. Look at, there is one more metaphor used in the poem, nectar of knowledge, which is very important. Nectar, it's full of with honey, it's full of with source. Okay, it has huge source within it. Okay, similarly the poet wants God to pour him that source, to pour him that knowledge, instruction, human values, so that he cannot feel any want in life. Okay, so that's very important. Lend ear to my wailing and please cure me of ills and pains. My God, you should lend ear. You should lend your ears to my pleas, to my requests. Whatever request I make, whatever prayer I make, okay, you should lend ear to them. Okay, and please cure me of ills and pains. These ills and pains even should be taken as metaphor here. These ills and pains are not the simple wrongs that we usually do. Yes, they are them also, but these ills and pains are all human values. Okay, which we have lost in this world. So that's why we feel chaos. Okay, it gives us pains then. So Mahjur wants God that he should cure him. He should cure him from all these ills and pains. Be kind each moment to me. Let me never feel in want. You should be very much kind. You should be very much kind, generous to me. Mahjur implores God, requests God that God should be kind to Mahjur. Let me never feel in want. That's how Mahjur says that God should not abandon him. Be kind each moment to me. Let me never feel in want. So if God is generous, if God is kind to him, he does not feel any want. He cannot feel any want. Okay, he cannot feel any lack of anything. Okay, because God is with him. This is very straightforward. Save me from sloth. This is very important, my dear students. Save me from sloth. This sloth is indolence. Indolence, kahili जिसको हम कहते हैं, kahili. I remember Sir Syed Ahmed Khan's one of the wonderful lines. बेकार मबाश कुछ किया कर, गर कर न सके कुछ कहा कर. That's very important, because when the title of the lesson of that Sir Syed Khan's lesson is kahili, indolence, we can say INDOLENC, indolence or sloth. So when man turns indolent, he loses all the courage. He loses all those human values which instigate him, which stimulate him or provoke him to do something which is colossal, which is great. Okay. So, save me from sloth, infirmity, unwillingness to do something, and doubts surcharge my heart. Surcharge means to fill with energy. Okay, surcharge my heart with patience. Okay, zest and hope. You can understand these things. These are one of the same terms. They have the similar kind of meaning. If we go through the synonyms of these terms, we can find, if we go through the context of these words, we can find that they are the synonymous to each other. Patience, zest, and hope. It means that God should fill his heart with energy, with patience, with love, with emotions. Okay, that's the context of the poem. Let me not ever chant the sleep-inducing tales. Let me not ever chant the sleep-inducing tales. My Lord, my God, my Almighty, you should not let me chant, sing those songs which make living dead. Rather, what you should do, let me sing of that which inspires people with love. Rather, you should make me sing. You should inspire my heart to sing those songs which will inspire people with love, which will make people to get up and love humanity. Okay, so that's the context of these lines. And causes all bitterness and hatred to vanish. This is the continuation of the previous line. And those songs, you should make me sing those songs which causes all bitterness and hatred to vanish, which will cause all the bitterness and hatred. Hatred, you understand it better. It is the hypocrisy of a man. It's all which makes human conscience divide of those values. It's all that. Okay, so he implores God. So he implores God that God should cause all bitterness, all this bitterness. Okay, all this bitterness and hatred to vanish, to fade away, to go from him. You brought me to bloom with the earliest vernal breeze. You brought me to bloom with the earliest vernal breeze. This vernal breeze is important because when we talk about vernal breeze, it simply means which has a beginning in the spring season. So वो हवाई जो स्प्रिंग सीजन में चलती है, जो मौसमी बहार में चलती है ना, उसको वर्नल ब्रीज कहते हैं. Look at what writer actually says. You brought me to bloom with the earliest vernal breeze. You brought me to bloom with the earliest vernal breeze. It's you, my God. It's your endowment. ये आपका अता किया हुआ है कि आपने मुझे उस earliest vernal breeze की तरह इस दुनिया में चमकाया, इस दुनिया में लाया है, शाइन होने के लिए. ओके, कुछ काम करने के लिए. ठीक है. Let not the burning heat of summer, my dear students, this burning heat of summer even is important to note, because it too is the metaphor. This burning heat of summer can be the oppression of the oppressors. This can be the suppression. Okay, this can be the all the ills of the society. This can be the ills of the society. Okay, so let not the burning heat of summer wither me grey. So these kind of pains, these kind of ills and evils of the society should not wither me grey. They should not destroy me. They should not mar me. Okay, like dew. Then there is a simile, use it in the poem. Like dew, how long shall I wait for the first flash of the sun? शबनम की तरह कितना टाइम में वेट करूं. The nature of the dew is that it waits for the first flash of the sun. When sun comes out, it vanishes, the dew. So but the poet is not ready to wait till that time even. So what he desires from God is that awaken me with the flowers in the first stroke of the dawn. This is very important, my dear students. He wants his God that he cannot wait till the first flash of the sun will come and he'll get up. Rather, he wants his God like the nature of the sunflower. Its nature is that before the sun, light drops on the earth, drops on it, it does not wait the sunlight. It waits the dawn, the light of the day. When light of the day begins, it starts, turning its head towards it and expanding its wings, those petals. So that's how, metaphorically the poet says that, God should not make me wait for the first flash of the sun. I cannot wait because he has no strength. If God lets him wait till that time, maybe he can be destroyed by the evils and ills of the society. So that's why he says, awaken me with the flowers in the first stroke of the dawn. So he wants God that he should awake him like the flowers of the dawn. Okay, like the flowers in the first stroke of the dawn, like the dawn comes and that it turns its head, sunflower, towards it and opens up its petals, its wings. So that metaphor can be considered that the liveness comes in that sunflower. That's how Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor, the poet, wants that he should be enlivened by the first flash of the dawn. So there is a simile in both the lines, because you should remember that whenever there is like or as used in the line, we find their similes. But in the second line, we don't find like or as in the line. But my dear students, this second line is the repetition of the first line. So simile is blended in both the lines. In form, I am a man. In structure, I am a man. In physical appearance, I am a man. Okay? In substance, far from humanity. But my kernel, but my inner is far from humanity, because my soul is corrupted. My soul is not my own. Okay, it's fraught with ills and evils. Okay, that's why it is far from humanity. It is devoid of human values. It's empty, in other words. It's empty of human values, which make human human. Okay, which make man human, in other words. So this is very important. In form, I am a man. In substance, far from humanity. In substance, in real essence, okay, I am far from humanity. Humanity cannot be found in me. Okay, because I am devoid of human values. I am empty of human values. Subject me not to trails. My lord, you should not, trails are the tests, my dear students. Trails are tests, examinations. So Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor wants his God that God should not put him to trials, he should not put him to tests. Shame not my human form, because if God puts him in test, okay, his human form will be shamed. It will be put to shame. Why? Because he does not have strength to face the tests of the God. Okay, so that's why he says, subject me not trails, shame not my human form. So God should bless him. He should bless him with these things. He should not put him to test. God should bless him with these things. He should not put him in test or examination, because his human form will be put to shame, put to danger. Okay, forsaken by men am I. This forsaken is rejected, to reject someone. Okay, reject or abandon. Abandon. Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor says in the last two lines, in the last couplet, forsaken by men, abandoned, rejected. I've already been rejected by the people. Okay, forsaken by men am I. Okay, look at the reverse of the grammatical structures. Forsaken by men am I. That's why I said that sometimes poets have the authority to violate the normal structure of language. So you can find the example here. This is very important for you. Forsaken by men am I, and so they call me Mahjoor. Okay, that's why they call me Mahjoor, abandoned one who has been rejected. Okay, people may desert me, no problem. There is no problem. So no problem if people reject me, they forsake me, they abandon me. There is no problem in that. But you don't abandon me, my Lord. But God should not abandon me. So he can bear this separation that if people abandon him, if people reject him. But Mahjoor, the poet, Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor, cannot bear the separation of God. So that's why he implores his God that God should put him under his protection. God should protect him. He should save him he should take him under his umbrage. He should take him under his protection, because he founds only refuge under the protection of God. That's very important. So my dear students, you should remember one important thing which I have missed, I think, at the very beginning of my lecture, that this poem is actually written in Kashmir. In fact, it's written in Kashmir because Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor is a famous Kashmiri poet, and it has been translated into English. This translation is the translation of Professor G.R. Malik Sahab. And Professor G.R. Malik Sahab, that he would teach at the Department of English, Kashmir University. So now he's retired. Okay. Usually we see that a lot of translations have been done by Professor G.R. Malik Sahab. So my dear students, at the end of the poem, so this was all about the poem. I have tried in this lecture that I'll cover the whole poem. So I have justified, I think. So this will not be the ultimate justifications, but one thing I'll tell you, that if I have missed some points from the poem, so you can go to the description where I usually try to analyze these poems myself. So you can find the analysis there. You can read the analysis. You will come to know a lot of things which might I have missed during the lecture, and those points all will be cleared there. I hope that you have understood all these things. I wish you all the best. Thank you.